Yo, what's up aliens? AHEE here with another tutorial. Today I wanted to really go into like the best way that I've found how to use OTT. But to know the best way, I have to show y'all some bad ways as well that I'm going to cover, and also I'm going to just show y'all like the ideas behind using OTT. So let's get into it. First off, what does OTT mean? Well, OTT stands for over the top compression. So it's a preset here in Ableton. So if you go to audio effects and then the multiband dynamics, OTT is right here. I'm going to show y'all what it sounds like on an Amen break. So here is the Amen break without the OTT. Now we're just going to throw on the OTT as is without touching it at all. And this is what it sounds like. Yeah, it compresses it a ton. Now, does it make it sound better? Not necessarily, but with a few adjustments, it can definitely make it sound way better. I'd say OTT is electronic music, like electronic bass music, electronic dance music is made and is often possible today because of OTT. So when you first look at the OTT, there's a lot going on here. There's like multiple menus here, but really you don't need to pay attention to all this. From what I've seen from the Skrillex video that I did, from doing classes with Getter and Virtual Riot and other artists, I saw how they were using OTT, and it's way simpler, and you can get really the most benefit out of it by following these techniques, by really only paying attention to these three knobs here on the right hand side. All the settings are pretty dialed, I'd say, in here, but then these three things can make a major difference. So first off is the output, and obviously that's just gain. So turn that up, turn it down, just volume there. Now 99% of cases you're going to want to turn the output up because everything's being compressed, therefore being made quieter. So we're going to often turn up the output. Next we have the time. Time is going to be doing a lot of things. It's the simplest way I can put it is when you turn it to the right, it makes things punchier, and when you turn it to the left, it makes things more squished. So punchier, squishier. Now let's actually listen to this. So this is the OTT. I've turned up the output, and we're just going to listen. That's with time set to the 100%. Now we're going to set it all the way to the right. Now you can hear a lot more transients coming through. Now if we go all the way to the left, it's going to be squishier. And that's just squashed to all heck. So the time knob is a huge part of using the OTT that I just don't see people using. Also, the amount here, it's not like a true dry wet. It's more of like an incremental amount, which is why it's called amount and not dry wet. So if we turn up the amount, we'll start to hear it affecting the sound. So again, output, gain, time, we'll say it changes how it affects the transients, and the amount is how much of the effect is being applied. And those are the three main things about using the OTT. And when you learn how to dial these things in, it's going to help your production out so much. Now I'm going to show you a bad example of OTT where people will mess with these outputs and just like, it's just really easy to mess up the sound. That one's way too many highs. It sounds weird. Again, it just sounds weird when you start messing with these things. I've found that to get it right, you want to play around. Usually with drum stuff, I want to have the time to the right because I want those transients in there for the drums. You want to turn the output up quite a bit and then mess around with the amount. I'd say that actually helps it. So without, and now with. Now you see here I've made it punchier just by a little bit, but turned up the output to increase that gain. Yeah, I'd say that was a good example. You can also use this on bass sounds. So I have this bass sound here. And if I apply the OTT to it, this can get out of hand. Which sounds pretty cool, yeah? Though I've developed a couple different ways to process the basses that are a little bit subtler. I call it the magic box, and I also have a version that just has 2 knobs, but literally I just throw this thing on certain elements in my mix in groups. I'll show you a group here in a second. Check this out. That was with, now without. So it brings out those background elements subtly, but not too much where they're like in your face. I sort of like using OTT in a more subtle way for certain elements and then more aggressively on other things. So next, I want to show you another bad example on drums. We'll set it as is. Here it is without. Now with. Now that's almost squishing it too much, and it's losing all the dynamics in the drums, which is something I don't want to do. And especially if we turn the time all the way to the left. It's like cool in the sense that like, oh yeah, it's being heavily affected and it's changed a lot, but like that sound isn't necessarily going to work well in your song. I just haven't heard any songs that really have that type of drums. Usually people have a bit more dynamics in their drums, so usually you want to have it to the right. See, even that, it takes away from the low end, but it brings up the high end. I'd say that setting right there. That setting has helped it out. And so it's allowing the transients to still come through while still bringing everything else up to a bit more equal volume, so that way the lows aren't too high. Cool. Next, I'm going to show you another bad example here with this trance sample. Some trance plugs. I watched other YouTube tutorials on OTT, so that way I could actually show y'all something new. I saw a lot of other production tutorials just overuse the OTT and get sounds like this. They're like, oh, see, you can get all that high end out of it, and I'm just like, it doesn't sound good though. And so like if we did want to bring out those background elements, I would do something like this. Yeah, so without, now with. So without again, and with. You know, it's super subtle, but it really does help. And I'd say that making lots of subtle things over time will help your mix a lot. Also here, another example is on vocals, which I don't really like OTT on vocals. So here's a vocal.
Now we step into the moon's eye view, a bright full moon wanes back to new.
Now with the OTT on it.
Now we step into the moon's eye view, a bright full moon wanes back to new.
It squishes all the dynamics of the vocal and just like brings up like these weird accidents and just weird clicks and the hisses in the background and the breaths. And so I just don't really use OTT on vocals. And if I do use them, I will use the magic box with 2 knobs. I'll just do it super subtly. So I'll show you what this does.
Now we step into the moon's eye view, a bright full moon wanes.
So that's way too much compression, but if I just do like a little bit here.
Now we step into the moon's eye view, a bright full moon wanes back to new. Now we step into the moon.
Depending upon what type of speakers you have, you're gonna be able to tell a little bit of a difference. Generally, I don't use the OTT on vocals. I want to show y'all a cool example of using the OTT here on like a drum group. So I've got this drum groove. So that's the drum groove, and now I'm going to apply the OTT to it. So it starts to bring up like the high end in the snare there and carry the length of the snare a little bit more. But I sort of think that it's a little too much. I really prefer to use my Magic Box, which is like a series of OTT, upwards compression, downwards compression, and a glue compressor. But I've like really dialed in the settings, I feel like. When I throw it on like a group. Now without. You see it feels dry without it. And now with it, you get more of that sparkle in the snare, and it carries the vibe and like the realness of the space of the drums. So here's a bass sound right now. Now when I throw on the Magic Box, that's just the regular settings. Like I don't mess with that at all. I throw this Magic Box on tons of groups, like my bass groups, my drum groups, and it just works really well. And if I need more out of it, I'll just keep on copying the box. But usually I don't do more than one or two, because then you can hear that background hiss, and we don't want that. So together, the drums and the bass, show y'all for fun. That's a part of a song I pulled out just for this little exercise. So that's a little bit on how I use the OTT. Now, before I go, I wanted to share with y'all some of the other Magic Ableton racks. So here in, I've got a Serum. This is a saw wave with a pitch bend. That's all it is. And I'm gonna apply these and show y'all what a big difference they make. That's the Magic Sign Distorter 2. Trippy Bass Maker. That one's fun to play with the phase frequency. Yeah. Then we have the Neuro Crusher. Sick. The Phase 808. That one's fun. The Dirty Sign Rack, which works also as well on saw waves. Love that one. And then we also have the Growl bass processor, which this one is really meant for like growl basses, but really you can add it pretty much on any bass to just beef it up a little bit. Here, we'll listen to the difference. Regular saw wave, growl bass processor. Just like beefs it up a little bit. I'll put a link below where y'all can get my Magic Racks. I have 2 sets of them. One is 25 Magic Racks for $20, and then another one is 8 for $5, which are like the add-ons. All super useful things. I use all the Magic Racks all the time. Now there are like hundreds of other people that are using the racks as well, and I've just been getting great feedback from everybody, so I appreciate that if you've already got them. And if you haven't, definitely go check it out. I'll put a link below of where you can get them. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please be sure to click that like and subscribe. Bye, aliens. Peace.